The Hanvon N10 is the latest release from the company in 2022. It features a 10.3-inch screen, 1872 by 1404 resolution, and 227 ppi pixel density. Blah blah blah, you've heard the same thing about 10.3-inch notes time and time again. So how about we focus on what this device brings to the table that's different? The device itself has a built-in leather sleep case with pen holder, 9 onboard physical buttons to do various tasks, and an all-new Wacom stylus with a hidden nib canister that allows for not only additional nibs, but different styles of nibs, including hard and soft. Not only that, the entire device is only 5.5 millimeters thick, or thin, we should say. Despite that overall thickness, it runs one of the largest battery capacities in the entire e-paper industry at a whopping 6,000 milliamps. So that's a little more interesting now, isn't it? Well, let's dive into the English UI. Yes, everyone, it is in English, which is kind of rare for companies like iReader, Hanvon, etc. Now, this has to be the most unique 10.3-inch eNote in existence today. Why that is because we've already mentioned a few things like the hidden nib canister inside that allow for different styles of tips, the fact that this has 9 buttons on the side that allow you to interact with the device in various ways, and there's also 2 more reasons. There's no touchscreen at all. There is no capacitive touch digitizer installed on this unit. We have confirmed with Hanvon directly. Second thing is that there's no glow light. Doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter how you update, there is no glow light installed on this unit. So what that means is a few things. Number 1 is that there's actually less layers of material in between your eyes and the viewable surface. And that's a good thing. This looks so raised to the surface. We haven't seen something so not sunken in quite some time. And what we mean by that is if you look at the very corners, you'll see that the actual display is not very far away from the very top layer of glass. It is an extremely good looking display. It is crisp, it is concise, and it feels very towards your face. So in that regard, it gets an absolute win. This is the way that everything is laid out. They're using these kind of panels, and each panel is going to change based on what you did. For example, things we've most recently read or opened is going to be right here in the recent readings. You can also make new memos by pressing plus, notes, and you have installed apps right here. You also have an app store on board, which we'll show you in a little bit, and you have settings. Settings does allow you to change this from traditional Chinese, simplified Chinese, and of course English. Now there is a downside with the English. Hanvon has this kind of habit of not making the device 100% English, which means if you press the buttons here, none of that is in English. So although you can assign all of these buttons, you are going to have to utilize Google Lens or some sort of AR on your phone or subsequent device in order to understand what any of that means. For better understanding, we have translated everything for you. So you have things like key setting, draft, undo, note page increase, last read, one-click refresh, page forward, and back a page. Now, this can all be switched by pressing these little up or downs. We're not going to do it because we've made a little bit of a muscle memory for ourselves, but if you move them down and up respectively, you can move, for example, the home or return to home to the very top button and whatever setup you wish. These buttons do require a little bit of a learning curve, especially because the assignments are not in English, but we have been in communication with Hanvon to see if we can get that altered. Typically, onboard app stores are never really that good. They have minimal applications. In fact, they only have about 15 per section. This one has 6. This one has 4. You get the idea. Everything is mostly going to be in Chinese as well, because although the English UI is installed as a language option, that doesn't mean that the apps have all catered to that, which they most definitely have not. So you will have to kind of rely on sideloading in APK files in order for you to get a better experience. Hanvon devices are definitely unique, as we said at the beginning. There's nothing really feeling like this in the industry. You're initial instinct is to just swipe the page, and you can't. Then you go over and say, I need to remember which one's forward and back, if you didn't assign it to the top and bottom, which should normally be the layout, but it isn't actually. By default, it's these two right here. You can use the pen as well to swipe, but because of the felt nibs, it does actually wear down the pen, so you do have to be sparing when you do that. This is a fantastic looking screen, I have to say again. It's so in your face. It's so flush. Even when some devices are flush, they don't look flush. This one truly does. So in that regard, they have hit a home run with the fact that this is an unhindered experience when it comes to display. It is quite miraculous. But the whole thing about at least reading ebooks is so unnatural, and it just is not assigned to your muscle memory to just be like, oh, I forgot I have to tap that, and you go back and you remember you have to have the pen, and if you're without the pen you have to use the keys and you have to remember where the keys are. It does require learning, and that's not something we really like to say around ebook readers, that there's a learning curve. You do have a bunch of things here that you can change: the font size, the boldness, you can change the row spacing, or you can set everything to default. You can read aloud, although it doesn't have onboard audio because there are no speakers. You will have to utilize Bluetooth in order to do that. And you have some different things like page orientation. You can go left hand, right hand, auto page turn, landscape to portrait, refresh, and of course, take notes and highlights. PDFs look so good on this device. It looks very, very high quality. Everything works very quickly. It's very responsive. Now, there is a little bit of a downside. Almost every manufacturer in the business now will allow you to sketch immediately. But because this doesn't have a capacitive touch layer or any way to interact whatsoever outside of the buttons, it doesn't know what to do with the pen. So it thinks you're scribbling on the screen, I'm trying to do a page turn, which to its credit it is. It's interacting the way this is meant to. So like the old days, you have to click on scribble to start scribbling, but then when you do, you can't turn pages anymore because you're initiating scribble. So again comes that learning curve. You have to press the little buttons up top or the buttons on the side. Also, if you go to collapse the menu, thinking you can still scribble, but the menu is collapsed, that's actually not true. You haven't collapsed the menu, you've canceled scribble. So this really does test your technical limits when it comes to just playing by the initial rules of a 10.3-inch note taker, because this breaks all the rules. Everything about this is unnatural. Everything about this is very, very new, and you just have to kind of abide by its own rules and regulations. You can also make very nice 90-degree lines, and this can be very useful for boxing things, etc. You have the eraser as well, or you can use the back of the pen to erase, and you can click on settings. This will allow you to do different things like to delete all the notes, embed them all so that they're actually part of this unit, or step back and unembed them. This is very useful for you to make mistakes and make edits like so. You can embed that so that when you export it, it will only be that. Again, there's no touch, so there's no pinching and zooming or anything like that. So overall, the PDF display is actually quite nice, but the note-taking integration and interaction takes a little bit of a back seat to just the difficulty involved. The note-taking experience, which you would think would be very robust because of the overall lack of touchscreen and other features, is not that robust. You do have 5 different pencils or pens. You have pencil, ballpoint, paintbrush, fountain pen, and featherbrush, which they call refountain pen. You have different widths, and you have different line thicknesses if you wish to do so. You have an eraser, although you can use the back of the pen as well to erase, stroke eraser, erase all, etc. And you can select blocks like that, circle it, and you can move it around and stamp it, etc. You do have the ability to insert shapes like line, arrows, ovals, circles, triangles, and squares. When you do an insert, it's very fast. You click a square, make a square, and there it is. So all that is totally fine. You can press add to add a new page at any given time, and press undo and redo in order to correct your mistakes. You can click here to get an overall thumbnail view of where you are on your notebook, and you can click on more to do a few other things. You can save your images as the shut off screen image, which is your standby screen. So you could make a big happy face in the middle of the screen, save it as your standby screen, press the standby screen, and there it is. You have some other things like export pages to PDF and save your notes, so you can save it as a PDF or as a JPEG. You can also go to more settings and you get some technical stuff like view thumbnails, add page, delete current page, and whether you want the toolbar with a bigger font size, etc. It's not really totally necessary. But outside of that, there really isn't anything else more you can do. There's text input, but that's really where it ends. But the good point about this is the writing feel. Obviously, the selling point of this unit is the fact that it comes with and utilizes an all-new pen with different tips. So the felt tip is going to be a very gritty feel. It has a lot of resistance, a lot of feedback, and as you draw, you actually feel the vibration through the pen itself. Depending on how close you are, how far away, that vibration and overall torquey nature will change. It's also very grippy. So as you can see, it doesn't slide on the screen quite as much as a palm tip. Now what you would do is you take this, open the back, it installs like so, screw that back on, and now we have the palm tip. The palm tip is going to have more flex, so it's going to simulate something that is a little bit more flexible in its tip, kind of like a fine liner rather than a ballpoint. Also, it is going to have far less grip on the screen. You will see that it slides around far more easily because it has a less gritty texture. It's very smooth and glidey on the screen, which can be good for some people. The Hanvon N10 is by far the most unique and polarizing 10.3-inch note-taking slate to date. It seems to have all the features and none of the features at the exact same time. A 6000 milliamp battery, built-in sleep cover case, and it being only 5.5 millimeters thin, but at the same time doesn't have a glow light or a touchscreen. This unique and hidden gem is definitely one to look out for, as it has one of the cleanest e-paper screens we've seen in quite some time. For GoodyReader.com, this is Peter.